Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. Today we're using Faust, as you can clearly tell. And honestly, the reason why I want to use her today is because I like to, whenever new identities come out, right, I tend to like to, before going into them, I like to use other identities that are somewhat related to them in some capacity, and you know, considering the newest identity is Hohenheim Big Bird Gregor, why not use Faust with her own lobotomy ego? Considering they're basically the same thing, you know? And so it's like, there is quite a few things I want to talk about in regards to that new identity, but I'll hold off on them until his actual video. But basically, because he's, you know, the Big Bird, he's wearing Big Bird's ego gear, it got me thinking about, like, the other major abnormalities that are associated with the bird, specifically, you know, Apocalypse Bird, and who would get Twilight the ego gear, right? And it's like, it's not Faust. I don't think Faust would get it, but when thinking about Apocalypse Bird, you also have to kind of take into account, or it's like he's also technically kind of associated with White Knight in my mind, because they're both like the two strongest abnormalities in the entire franchise, basically. And so it got me thinking, like, who would get White Knight's ego? And personally, I believe it would actually be Faust. I mean, if you think about it, like their actual stories are kind of similar if you think about it, because both of them, they collect 12 different people, promise them something that only they can give them, and ask them to follow them with nothing but faith, basically. And that's exactly what Faust did, right? She went around, collected the 12 sinners, aka the 12 apostles, told them that she could give them something that they wanted if they just followed her and believed her, right? There's a bit more nuance to it than that, obviously, but like, it's the general gist of it, and like, it's almost one-to-one as to White Knight himself. So yeah, if anybody gets Paradise Lost, it honestly should be Faust. We head into 2B Cleave for the next floor, where we find the manor-shaped music box, Eclipse of Scarlet Moths, and Nixie Divergence, before making it to the boss against the fairy Longlegs. Honestly, when it comes to this identity in particular, it's like, she's still pretty good. Like, it's a bit weird because Faust's best tremor identity is the one that has the highest speed, which is why the best Faust tremor identity currently is actually not a tremor identity at all. It's Faust, because she's just really fast. And the reason for that is because tremor is incredibly dependent on specifically Faust's everlasting ego, and because it inflicts, what is it? Tremor entanglement? It makes it so that in order for any Faust identity to be the best tremor identity, they need to be moving first in the turn so that they can use Tremor Everlasting before anybody else can move. And that's why Faust is the best tremor identity, because she's just the fastest Faust identity. And it's kind of unfortunate, because Regretful is actually a pretty good identity in her own right. I mean, her greatest weakness... I mean, not weakness. Her greatest strength is the fact that she's got a lot of attack weight. And so it's like, against enemies like Fairy Longlegs, who have multiple parts, she actually does really, really good damage. And more specifically, like, she has pretty good tremor application as well. And also she buffs every single tremor identity by giving, what is it, defense power down whenever a tremor burst happens. So it's like, she is a very good identity, and that's not even talking about like the debuff she comes with, you know, the plus coin drop with her skill 2, which is the strongest debuff in the entire game. But it's really, her greatest weakness really is just her speed, you know? It makes it so that she's usable in a tremor team, but not the best option you can have. We head into the Noon of Violet for the next floor, where we find the Wobbling Keg, Nebulizer, Melted Eyeball, and Devil's Share, before making it to the boss. So obviously it's like using a lobotomy ego identity, you gotta pick the lobotomy floors, right? It makes sense, it's fitting. And I always prefer thematic. I always prefer the thematic floors over anything else, to be honest. Even though, like, this floor is technically completely useless for this identity because, you know, the ego gifts present here are, like, basically all revolve around sinking. Plus a couple bleed and charge, but mostly sinking. And Faust, being a pure tremor identity, it's like, yeah, she doesn't get any real benefit from picking this floor. Not the best choice, but it's fun. It's also pretty interesting here, like, specifically how her extra attack weight works. And I guess by extension how everyone who gains attack weight in a similar way that she does works. Because if you don't know, the Fruit of Understanding, each of their parts, they each take up 2 attack weight, right? Which means that normally, if you're attacking them with a skill that has multiple attack weight, it simply wouldn't use all of that attack weight because they just absorb most of it into a single part. But if you specifically gain that attack weight during the turn instead of it being before, then it actually has kind of like semi-smart targeting and kind of ignores the fact that their parts consume so much space, basically. Like, here's another example, like the big obelisk. He has a very similar thing. In fact, he absorbs even more attack weight with like 3 parts per. And yet Faust is still capable of, you know, utilizing her attack weight to its fullest potential. It definitely makes her a lot stronger in encounters specifically like this one.
직원이라면 당연한 판단이긴 해. 탈출 개체 확인.
저희 직원들이 개체의 부위를 파괴했어요. 역시 미리 훈련하길 잘했죠?
탈출 개체 확인. 개체가 약화된 것 같습니다.
제압 개체에게 맞는 정상적인 공격. 잘했어. 디페리트. 당연한 걸 한 것 가지고 굳이 이제야 회사가 정상으로 돌아갔네. 이번 제압은 끝이야.
We head into Hatred and Despair for the next floor, where we find another skill 2, the Book of Vengeance, the Knight's Blessing, Downpour, and Lunar Memory, before making it to the boss against the Knight of Despair. For this fight, we definitely got more than a little lucky to get the Knight's Blessing, because Faust is fatal to pierce damage. Which means that without that blessing, this fight would be kind of really, really obnoxious. I wouldn't really say it's difficult. Also, hi Queenie. But it's like, it's definitely not hard either, I'd say. I mean, if it was difficult, it's like we would already be staggered by this point, right? Even without being fatal to the Knight of Despair. And it's like, even though we got Lunar Memory very early as well, it doesn't really do a whole lot, to be honest. Because the 10 protection from the Knight of Despair, it still puts in quite a bit of work, you know? Like, you can't really ignore the 10 protection until you actually get a ton of damage modifiers, and right now we just don't really have that much. We have a few, but it's like, it's not enough to stop 10 protection at this point, right? At least not fully. But in any case, it's like, there is one thing in particular about this fight that makes Faust, like, really, really good here. And that is her attack weight, right? Because since it has like semi-smart targeting, it always ends up the extra attack weight it gains, it always ends up targeting the vulnerable sword, the one that you want to destroy in every single turn. And because of that, you can basically completely ignore the swords and only attack the Knight of Despair, and you will still end up destroying the swords because of the extra attack weight she gains. It just makes it like really, really efficient in terms of like, you know, skill management and clashing. Because pretty much every other identity, except I guess also technically, you know, other ones that can gain attack weight in a similar manner, it makes it so that she just is a lot more efficient here, and as a result, it's like, even if we didn't have the Knight's Blessing, the Pierce Fatality probably wouldn't matter that much, honestly. I mean, I'm sure we would have gotten staggered at some point, but I don't think we would have been at threat of death at any point. Other than that, though, it's just a very standard fight. Like, Lunar Memory helps quite a bit to actually do damage before anything else, but ultimately, yeah, it's just a normal Knight of Despair fight that's aided a lot with the extra attack weight, because you can just ignore the swords.
적에게 치명성을 입혔군요. 관리자님은 당신이 생각하는 것보다 대단한 능력을 가지고 있습니다. 제가 늘 말씀드렸죠. 저는 언제나 옳은 말만 한답니다. 우리 앞을 막는 증오스러운 존재들에게 나와 그대의 힘을 합쳐 위대한 사랑의 힘을 보여줄 것을!
사실은 그렇게 대단한 일도 아니에요.
걱정할 필요가 없는 건 좋네.
탈출겠지.
잘했어. 아카나 레이! 당신 그래도 자! 악당 패치 성공! 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
We head into the Infinite Procession for the next floor, where we find the Bell of Truth, the Rusty Commemorative Coin, Ornamental Horseshoe, Angel's Cut, and another skill 3, before making it to the boss against the Bloodfiend trio. Honestly, this fight is actually quite similar to the Night of Despair. Specifically in the fact that, like, her attack weight is very, very beneficial here. The one biggest downside, I'd say, to her attack weight is, specifically in regards to soloing, is the fact that, like, it always adds the attack weight to the leftmost skills first and foremost. And at this point in the run, I kind of understood that, but it's like I didn't really internalize it just yet. Honestly, it doesn't really matter that much until you get a lot of skill slots, and once you have a lot of skill slots, it's like, if you're using both, who are they? Molar Otis and Yorodivi Ryoshu? If you're using both of them like we are, it's like she really doesn't struggle at all to gain tremor count, and as a result, like, most of her skills always have attack weight. And because of that, you don't really need to do much thinking. Especially because it's like her skill 2 in particular, as long as it's hitting multiple characters, it's always, at the very least, neutral in terms of how much tremor count it gains. And therefore, it's like, it's very sustainable and incredibly easy for her to build up tremor count to gain even more attack weight. Honestly, she is just a really, really good identity all around. Which is pretty good, considering she is, like, the first Walpurgis identity. And it's like, it's nice to see that even the earliest Walpurgis identities are capable of keeping up. I mean, she's no Faust, obviously, but in the right teams, or I should say specifically, when she's fighting the right enemies, she's actually very, very strong. And then she's also got, like, really good support as well with that plus coin drop, so all around, very good identity. Can't really complain about her. Other than the fact that, like, she's outclassed in the Tremor team by Faust, who isn't even a Tremor identity. All because of her ego. It's hilarious. We head into Time Killing Time for the next floor, where we find the Clockwork Spring, Lowest Star, the Entanglement Override Sequencer, Etched Clock Hands, the Emergency Investigator Badge, Imposed Weight, Crushed Memory, and Clear Mirror Calm Water, before making it to the boss against the Time Ripper. Honestly, there's a lot of fights that Faust excels at, like, a lot. And that's because, like, the only fights I'd say she doesn't really excel at is any fight that only has a single part. Right? So, most, like, single target bosses, which, frankly, there isn't really a whole lot of those outside of, like, final bosses, I'd say. And even final bosses tend to have, like, multiple parts. But yeah, like, the one fight that I can see her kind of struggling in is, like, Lei Hang. But like most other fights, it's perfectly fine, you know, because they usually come with extra minions, and if there's even a single other character in the fight, then she can take advantage of her attack weight, and that is her strongest aspect, so she'll always be very usable. The Time Ripper is one of those fights where it's like, it really shows how strong the attack weight is, and that's purely because he just has a lot of different parts himself. So we can just maximize the amount of damage we're doing. Honestly, it's a little unfortunate that she doesn't have, like, the normal conditional that most other attack weight characters have, where she does even more damage if she's only attacking a single part. If she had that, she'd be a lot better. And also, right here, it's like, there was no reason for me to get staggered right there. Because since we have the Book of Vengeance, I could have just used a counter skill and that would have automatically negated the stagger. But I didn't think about that, and also I wasn't looking at the speed, so I didn't realize he was faster. If I did, I would have used the counter skill there, and effectively we wouldn't have had to skip a turn, and probably would have killed him a turn faster, but yeah, it is what it is. Honestly, that's my biggest problem with this game, and specifically with how I play it. I never look at the speed, and because of that I end up misplaying a lot, just because I'm not paying attention to the speed tiers. We head into line 4, section 3 for the next floor, where we find Finifugality and Late Bloomer's Tattoo, before making it to the boss. Alright, the Pecatulum. Honestly, the Pecatulum are pretty scary. Not only because they do a lot of damage, but also because Faust just doesn't really have any real clash power, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, compared to the newer identity, she doesn't anyways. Like, her clash power is fine for what it is. But the biggest problem with it is that she just doesn't have any sort of clash power conditionals or coin power conditionals, so she just cannot get any stronger by attacking enemies with, like, Tremor, for example. It's like that technically isn't true either, because she does have one specific clash power conditional, but it works in reverse to everybody else's, right? Because for her passive, right, if the enemy has 3 different types of debuffs, then she gets an extra clash power. And if they have 6, then she gets 2. Which is very easily manageable for her to get at least 1, because her skill 2, for example, automatically inflicts 3 different types of debuffs on its own, so it's not that hard for her to actually get that extra clash power, but it's like, it's not her clash power, you know? It reduces the clash power of the enemy, it doesn't buff hers. And because of that, it's like, on the first turn, where people don't really have a whole lot of debuffs, unless you have specific ego gifts, of course, she tends to struggle quite a bit to actually win clashes. But once you get that debuff applied, it's like, her clash power just instantly shoots up, because it's like, you got the minus coin drop, she also inflicts, like, offense level down, and then, like, because we're in the mirror dungeon, we have even more offense level down from things like Melted Eyeball. So it's really just that first turn where she just struggles quite a lot to actually win clashes. But once you get out of that, she's actually really good at winning clashes because of all of her debuffs. And honestly, I feel like that's something that's a bit underutilized in this game so far, is identities that specifically debuff the enemy to get stronger, right? I mean, I think the new Gregor identity sort of does that. I can't really remember off the top of my head what his conditionals were after reading them, but I'm pretty sure he debuffs the enemies quite a bit. So he kind of fits into that sort of category. But yeah, I feel like we should have more debuffers in the game. It's an underutilized concept, in my opinion. We head into the evil defining for the next floor, where we find the bloody gadget, before making it to the boss. This right here is one of the biggest examples of like what I mean when she just doesn't have very good clash power. because usually against Ahab, it's very easy to beat her, just beat her big skill. This one right here, the weight of guilt. It's very easy to win a clash against that for most identities, but Faust just can't do it. At least not on turn 1, because, yeah, all of her clash power is dependent on debuffs, basically. All around, though, this fight isn't that hard. It's just, it's Ahab. What do you expect, right? She's not threatening at all on turn 1. Her only actual threat is in the 3rd turn with her counter skill, but since we do so much damage, we can bypass that basically entirely on just with like 2 attacks. So yeah. Easy fight. No challenge. Would have preferred the Pequod trio as a boss, but what can you do? It's a 50-50 chance.
징계팀 직원이라면 당연한 판단이겠네. 잘했다는 칭찬 생각하는 게 좋겠지?
해냈구나. 관리자님,
탈출개체 확인.
어서 적대 기체를 자세히 파악해주세요. 안 그러면 많은 직원들이 다칠 거예요.
개체가 약화되는 것 같습니다. 효율적인 대처로 개체를 이끌었습니다. 참고로 기계는 입에 발린 말 따위 쉽게 하지 않아요.
오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
We head into Nocturnal Sweeping for the next floor, where we find the enhancement tattoos, Temporal Brittle, the Guiding Gas Lamp, and Fragment of Desire, before making it to the boss against the sweepers. And here we have the sweepers. The fight I took exclusively because I wanted to take advantage of Faust's extra attack weight. And honestly, they're kind of difficult. Not because they do, like... I mean, yes, they do a lot of damage, but specifically it's the fact that they have... Yeah. Lust skills, which we are fatal to, and we can't turn that off with the Night of Despair. And also, it's like... Just like with before, we can't win clashes on the first turn, so we just have to sort of tank it. But the second we get out of the first turn, and specifically the second turn as well, because we don't have any attack weight on the second turn since we didn't actually do anything. Actually, that's a lie. We did do something. You instantly gain it with the counter skill. I forgot about that. But anyways, point is, sweepers, difficult to survive the first turn. Everything else is incredibly easy because of our attack weight. It's just fun. It's fun to attack a lot of enemies when you have a lot of attack weight. And Faust is probably the single best identity at gaining attack weight in the entire game. She has the easiest job of gaining it and maintaining it for the entirety of the fight. And it's because, like, only her skill 3 is the one that consumes any tremor count. I mean, technically her skill 2 does, but it also gains the tremor count back, so it doesn't really count. Yeah, just super satisfying for her to kill 3 enemies with a single attack. Honestly, if it wasn't for that lust fatality, I'd probably say that Faust could probably solo like the entirety of the sweepers' Night of the Backstreets. And I guess also the Pierce fatality as well. Like, the only reason that's not an issue is because of the Knight of Despair's blessing, but yeah. Her defenses are not the greatest for this fight, I'd say that much, but like her offense is incredible.
정상적인 공격이야. 잘했어. 키페르트. 당연한 걸 한 것 가지고 굳이 칭찬할 필요 없어.
탈출 개체 확인.
해냈구나. 나랑 그릴 거야.
징계팀 직원이라면
개체의 유효한 속성을 정확하게 간파했습니다. 제 예상만큼 관리자님의 능력이 우수하다는 것이 증명되는 것 같아 다행이군요.
있는 힘껏 찔러놓고 으깨놨지만 저것들은 언젠가 다시 재생하겠지.
We get into Refraction Railway, Line 4, Section 4 for the next floor, before we find the Chains of Loyalty, the Cigarette Holder, and the 4-Leaf Clover, before making it to the boss against the King in Binds. Honestly, the King of Binds is kind of a difficult fight here. And it's because of the thing I've been talking about, like, a lot. We just don't have very good clash power. Like, not even our ego can consistently beat these guys.
탈출 개체 확인.
Fortunately, it's like, we don't really need to win very many clashes because of the attack weight, right? And it's like, we just need to effectively survive the first turn. That's the big thing. But even still, it's like, I definitely struggled a lot with this fight. Let me just say that much. You'll see.
멈추지 않는 시대에서 희망과 미래를 찾아.
방금 공격은 좋았어. 이대로만 계속해보면 좋을 텐데.
한 상처는 피해를 받을 뿐 소멸하지 않아.
탈출 개체 확인.
Honestly, the, what's it called? Reverberation with a single paralysis that it inflicts if they have Tremor. That's a really good ego gift here. Because it really helps us to actually be able to win clashes most of the time. And also it makes it so that if they use their egos like this, then it's not that big of a deal because they can't really roll heads. Unless, of course, we happen to lose a clash, but that's never gonna happen, right?
탈출 개체
Who loses a clash against Garden of Thorns? Not me.
직원 중 하나가 큰 피해를
And of course we have Lust Fatality still, so it does a lot of damage. Stagger Plus and all that. So yeah, Otis kills us. But actually Otis killing us is actually kind of good because of the emergency investigator badge, it cancels the stagger. So it's like we probably would have died there if not for the emergency investigator badge. I mean, obviously we would have because we did die to Otis's attack, but like without the stagger canceling, like the other skills would have done fatal damage and would have probably been enough to kill us. So very good thing we had that. Definitely needed it. Well, technically we didn't need it. It's just we got unlucky and lost a clash, and the rest is history. But that's the only way you can really lose in this game, is if you just get unlucky and lose a clash here or there. Which is why you gotta roll with the punches, you know? Because if you don't do that, then what's the point? If you're searching for the perfect turn, you're never gonna have any fun. Because if you're not struggling, there is no challenge, and if there's no challenge, there's nothing to enjoy. At least that's the way I view things.
제압 완료. 적에게 치명상을 입혔군요. 관리자님은 당신이 생각하는 것보다 대단한 능력을 갖추고 있다고 제가 늘 말씀드렸습니다. 저는 언제나 옳은 말만 한답니다.
Obviously, though, once we get out of that unlucky sequence of events, The rest of the fight is not that bad. A lot to do with our attack weight, but mostly because we can actually start winning clashes with all of the debuffs applied, and also I guess buffs as well with like clear mirrors, offense level, and whatnot.
제압 개체를 다수
And then once we beat the Pecatulum, obviously, King of Mines himself shows up, and he's a complete pushover like always. I wish he was stronger. It makes sense that he isn't, considering, you know, he's the king. He's reliant on his subjects to do basically anything at all. But even still, they could give him unbreakable coins or something, you know? We'll probably get it when we get the Refraction Railway 4 rerun event, like in 5 years' time or something. Gonna be a while before that, though.
제압 개체에게 맞는 정상적인 공격. 잘했어. 그랬구나. 당연한 거 한번까지 거야. 굳이 칭찬할 필요 없어.
탈출 개체 확인.
이 파괴 이 정도는 볼만한데. 자, 기회 주지 말고 계속 제압으로 이어가.
효율적인 대처로 탈출 개체가 정리되었습니다. 참고로 기계는
제압
입에
회사가
발린 말
정상으로
따위
돌아갔네.
쉽게 하지 않아요.
이번 제압은 끝이야.
제압 완료. 경보에는 익숙해지시는 게 좋을 겁니다. 아직 50일까지 많은 날이 남은 것을 파우스트는 알고 있으니까요.
And that's how I beat Mirror Dungeon 6 hard using only Regret Faust. It feels nice to revisit this identity. She was one of the first ones I did a solo run with when I started doing, like, when I decided to solo with every single identity in the game, so she's definitely got a soft spot for me, I'd say. Or I've got a soft spot for her. She's very strong. Well, not very strong, but she is very good. Also very usable, one of the best debuffers in the game, and someone you can always have a good time with. Although she's not the strongest Tremor identity, because Faust is the strongest Tremor identity for some reason. But anyways, that's it from me. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Goodbye.